Hence, Zeke Rosenberg playing Rakdos midrange against Jeffrey Howell playing Izzet Murktide.
Red cards going 2-0, Travis. Who'd have thunk?
Yeah, I mean, they banned Luris. I thought people weren't going to be playing Unholy Heat anymore, but I guess folks still are.
Yeah, who would play red?
All right, so this matchup seems like it's going to be really fun. You know, there's going to be interaction on both sides of the table. One person's playing hand disruption, one person's playing counter spells. We both have a lot of removal. Murktide, the namesake of the deck, is going to be the card that is really hard for Rakdos to deal with. They might have a Terminate in the main deck, maybe one more on the side, maybe none in the main deck, but that's probably going to the game's going to pivot around like Jeffrey being able to get a big Murktide, or a player finding a spot where you can dash Ragavan or be able to attack with Ragavan. That's my guess on how this is going to play out.
Okay, well, I was just going to say, while some players would get tilted by losing the die roll 8-3, I know for a fact that Zeke has a great mental game and will be unaffected by losing the die roll 8-3.
So I wonder. All right, I think we might have a Spell Pierce for Jeffrey. Yeah, there we go. Usually you're gonna play a threat, or you're gonna hold up a removal or a Spell Pierce. These decks have like pivoted towards playing multiple spell pierces, which I think is good in the format right now. Folks are playing a little bit higher casted cards or casting cost cards, and so Spell Pierce has better utility. But we're getting a second Inquisition, and we're going to consider before that resolves.
Zeke's sitting on a Ragavan in hand, but a very heads-up player will not play that out in this matchup until we know what the heck is going on in Jeffrey's hand. So I imagine we're going to see Blackcleave Cliffs into Thoughtseize because Zeke will not quit.
I need to see your hand. Oh, this is a hard one, but I mean, iteration is what you go for.
Yep. Yeah, I think without a doubt.
Whoa.
Okay. So, I mean, this does mean that the Ragavan likely will be able to get in next turn.
I don't know. If you cast an iteration, you get to try maybe find a lightning bolt or
yeah. It's it's a maybe. You certainly can with the iteration, but at least Zeke is saying, I'm not willing to just say the Ragavan's just going to die when it gets in.
This is kind of a bad iteration.
Agreed.
There's an Archmage's Charm. There is 2 more iterations. So, yeah, we don't even get the land there.
So Zeke is sitting on a Lightning Skelemental, and maybe that was the impetus here, is we are just going to say, getting in with the Skelemental, because Zeke knows iteration might represent 2 cards, although in this case it represented 1 card.
Yeah.
But it is going to represent 2 cards gone for Jeffrey.
Love it. I love it. Ouch. I did not know Skelemental was in the deck. Now I know. So I think we were just left with an Archmage's Charm. And dashing a Ragavan.
Beginning of combat? Yeah.
Oh, don't steal it. Okay, we're drawing 2.
Yeah.
And we found the lightning bolts.
Okay.
Plus a Murktide.
All right.
Here we go.
Jeffrey's back in it.
Very swingy.
That is the iteration that you want to see.
Yes, Archmage's Charm better than the iteration.
Or sorry, excuse me, the Archmage's Charm that you want to see. Yeah.
I mean, that literally would have been what you would have wanted to see off the iteration, but. All right. The only thing better right now would be drawing a counterspell. And there's no reason not to make this as big as possible.
You know, there's something to be said kind of for everybody's different mannerisms when they play Magic. I like Jeffrey's method of tapping. It's very confident and forward, and I appreciate that.
We need to clip that for Jeffrey. So chat was wondering why you don't take control of Ragavan with the Charm. It's because Ragavan was dash, so Jeffrey would keep control of it for the turn, but then it would go back to Zeke's hand afterwards. So you either want to counter it with the Charm if it's dashed, or hope to draw an answer. And is Zeke going to draw an answer for this Murktide? is very big.
Zeke is flooding out a little bit here and does not have the Croxa to back it up.
I mean, it was also interesting. Jeffrey like discarded 2 lands and had like what I would consider would be flooding out as well, but just was able to use the card draw spells to find a threat.
Zeke with an absolutely monstrous start and just has to pack it up because we're just drawing lands, and Murktide will finish a game fast. Kind of a bit of a surprising 1-0 for Jeffrey there. Really felt like Zeke had the advantage kind of through the early game, but then we kind of hit mid-game. And yeah, Zeke just drawing nothing off the top.
I mean, I think that is the major draw to Murktide, is that there are very few answers to a very large Murktide. I mean, some decks are playing Terminate. You might end up with a Liliana, but like when you have that attrition game and you can just like slam a 8/8 Murktide, you have like 2 turns to answer that maybe. So yeah, but sideboard wise here, if you're Jeffrey, I feel like you kind of want to board out some amount of permission. I think keeping the spell pierces in is good, but maybe taking some amount of counter spells out, because they don't you don't want to end up top decking a counter spell. If you have any other threats to throw in there, that's great. You don't. I assume if my opponent is playing like lightning skelemental, that there's going to be persists. So maybe having something like a relic could be good to board in. Looks like you're just thinking about Blood Moons. I don't really like Blood Moon on the draw, but maybe it's good enough if Zeke doesn't play around it and is playing pretty mana intensive deck.
Yeah, Jeffrey's grabbed at least 3 relics, might be 4 that are coming in. So those are absolutely coming in.
Yeah, so chat asking what the second match is. We had this set up. The main Modern Monday is in a different room. It's in the bar, but we have this whole outside area set up in the huge sort of open foyer, and we have a backup match. So if Zeke and Jeffrey end early, we're going to pull the backup match over.
And all we can tell you is there is a suspended Lotus Bloom that just came off suspend. So are we talking Tameshi Bloom? Or are we talking ad nauseum? Who knows? And on Zeke's side, so we didn't really talk about Zeke's side. I mean, I imagine we're bringing in some number of Nile Spellbomb, some things that are just going to kind of hit the yard on Jeffrey's side and not cost Zeke too much, just to ideally keep Jeffrey off the Murktides for as long as possible.
There's got to be some Terminates on the sideboard too. Usually it's a split. I haven't seen Zeke's exact list with the Skelementals, but that's you have to have an answer to Murktide in your 75. So,
or some Dreadbores if you're on. I'm in for Dreadbore lately, to be honest, Trav. The instant speed I don't think is as big of a deal with. I guess it's because we haven't seen, excuse me, as much Hammer Time, or at least I haven't in this store. Maybe it's still running around, but I feel like you can afford to play Sorcerer's Speed with Dreadbore to get the advantage of taking out walkers.
All right, Zeke going with the turn 1 Ragavan.
Does Jeffrey have the answer? This is kind of such a big moment in the match.
Right, and a lot of times if you have an instant speed answer, you're going to wait till your opponent attacks with the Ragavan, so they don't then dash it after you've killed it, but we'll see what happens. Well, let's take a look and see what we've got in Jeffrey's hand.
Bolt. So there is a bolt. So we're going to see the answer here for the monkey, and the game will continue. Which means we are going to see the IOK resolve.
What you got in your hand, Jeffrey? We have Consider, Counterspell, Ragavan, Iteration, and another Consider, plus a land. I probably take... I mean, I almost always take Iteration. But
yeah, especially in a grindier matchup like this. I mean, the rest of the stuff... Zeke's hand, looks like there is a Skelemental... the Skelemental is representative of 2 cards. I mean, this is a little tough for Zeke. Skelemental, obviously a fantastic card, but you got to get in with it if you're spending 3 mana on it. And that is can be a tall task against this Murktide deck, which can really choose to play the more controlling role in a game like this.
I mean, I guess if you're putting Skelemental in your deck, your plan is to try to be able to like cast, attack, and connect with it. So
Yes.
I kind of get taking Counterspell, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's the right decision, but it's like a very flavorful decision.
Yeah, I mean Zeke I think is very aware that his deck does not win if it's not connecting with Skelemental. So that's what we're going for. But I kind of agree. I mean, I think you can connect with Skelemental a number of times, but if you're not preventing from Jeffrey from just like grabbing a Murktide off the top, it's a heck of a ride for you.
I also really want to shout out Zeke for shortcutting really well here. Announces what's going to happen and then casts his spell, and then like while there's a response is searching for the land that's going to use to cast this spell. It's just like very efficient, and when you're playing Paper Magic, that like you can save so many minutes off the clock just by doing things like this, and I really respect and appreciate when a player plays with that pace. All right, we fetched. I think Jeffrey fetched so we can consider without shocking, which to me maybe telegraphs that there's Blood Moons in the deck. If you want to hit a Lightning Bolt but don't want to have to fetch a Steam Vents.
I don't think Jeffrey tossed them in, as I believe that I saw them available in sideboard, and if there is any in, I would say there's just one, because I think I saw 4 cards come in, 3 of them be relics.
All right, well maybe it's just to save life, which makes sense when you're playing against
Sure.
6/6 or 6/1 Hasties.
Absolutely. And this Skelemental is going to get in.
It looks like we've seen a lot of considers. I think Jeffrey considered twice and then ended up drawing a consider.
I mean, you know, another one of those matches where Jeffrey.
I think we have to discard, right?
Yeah. We're gonna
Okay.
do that. I'm sure Jeffrey's very aware that, you know, the big important part of this matchup is finding Murktide.
Oh, this is an interesting discard decision.
Yep.
Because you could dash in the Ragavan. I think I kind of wanted. What would I would dump Relic and Consider probably, or no, Relic and Land, Consider and Land. One of those two. Because you could conceivably dash in Ragavan, maybe play, if it's a good spell that you flip over, like Hand Disruption, play that. If not, then play the Relic with the treasure. But
Yeah. It's dashing Ragavan's a little. I mean, just. Whew. So this means if you play the island here and dash in, okay, I guess you can hold up.
we discarded the Ragavan. Ragavan and Consider were discarded.
Okay, I like that. I think if you're on Jeffrey's side, you really do. You need to play the control. Like, you need to be the control role here, because I don't think you're winning the game otherwise. So I think you need to start getting some advantage out of the iteration.
I guess to me that's why I would want to dump the land plus another spell, because with iteration you're really likely to hit your third land drop. But you know, these are all judgment calls. There's not a right or wrong answer, and this is awkward because you want to pop Relic to draw a card, but Murktide's one of your better draws.
Boy.
So that's kind of why I was into ditching the Relic off the lightning hit, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I like the play by Zeke for sure.
All right. Blow up artifact, discard card.
But I'm sure, you know, Zeke, I'm sure, wanted to get the Skelemental back there.
It's interesting. That was a really interesting sequence to watch. There's a lot of very impactful decisions that both players made, and there wasn't like an obvious correct answer. All right, we got 2 heats and a spell pierce.
Oh, that is really another bad iteration in the current board state.
And he kind of sucks right now. So I mean, spell pierce kind of sucks right now. Heat is good, but you can't cast it now, and Yeah, unless there was another.
And even if you could cast it, there's nothing on board.
Was there a fetch land? Yeah, there was a fetch land. So
Ah, okay. Yes.
yeah,
I see.
I think we're dashing Ragavand at this point, right?
I would agree. But you're going low. I mean, fetch shocking here to be able to dash Ragavan. And Zeke is going to sit there with a bolt and terminate in hand and be unable to take this Ragavan off the board until next turn. So Jeffrey gets a shot at hitting a discard spell, which is big game. If you're Zeke, you're thinking like, I mean, hope you boarded a good amount of them out. And it looks like we hit Unearth, which is useless at this point, but very good in Zeke's deck.
All right. So at this point, I'm not dashing in Ragavan. So it might play unless you had a counter spell, but
Looks like Murktide was the draw. So possible that Jeffrey is just feeling like we need to get Murktide on board. So just willing to kind of trade some resources here to fill up the yard. Wow, we go for the terminate.
wow, that's gonna be punishing.
Well, I mean, Zeke, I'm sure, is thinking, how do I win this game? And Bolt, of course, dealing damage to face, is a potential way to win the game.
Oh, and Jeffrey is just waiting to use this Unholy Heat to make the Murktide bigger. I would be very tempted to have cast a Murktide to be a 4/4, but because you're probably not going to get it out of heat range anytime soon. Yeah. Interesting call. I'm sure there's a lot of thought into it. But we get to cast an iteration now, and as one of the better top decks to have.
Yeah, once again, I don't really think it's that huge of a problem for Jeffrey to play the control role. I mean, yeah, Zeke might just dump the hand, though, because Zeke's sitting on a Seasoned Pyromancer, and it looks like plus at least one, maybe two bolts.
It's like we had Counterspell, Heat, and Archmage's Charm. Okay, yeah, Jeffrey's playing it very safe because you could have kept one of those cards, revealed Charm and cast Charm, but we're just saying we value the utility of countering a spell more than tapping out right now.
And yeah, it does look like Seasoned Pyromancer plus two bolts in Zeke's hand, so I'll be really interested to see if Zeke just kind of goes for the throat with the bolts here. Or do we go for the... Are you going face, or are you taking out this Murktide region? Looks like Zeke's going face. I mean, this is a way to put Jeffrey on notice as far as you're getting one elemental plus a Seasoned Pyromancer. Jeffrey's sitting at one.
I mean, this is... Oh, man, this is so precarious because Jeffrey's going to be able to heat the Pyro, steal the Elemental.
But Zeke will be able to kind of flash back the Pyromancer. But Zeke did only hit lands with the Pyromancer draw, so, potentially flooding out a little bit again.
So Jeffrey, heads up play. A lot of people want to cast Heat on the instep and blow up the treasure. With the treasure, it doesn't really matter if you cast it on your opponent's instep or your turn, because when you're blowing, you're sacrificing the treasure. That mana is not going to exist the next turn. So it's usually a lot wiser just to wait, because it really doesn't factor into mana that's available to you the next turn in the same kind of way that using a land would.
Boy, Jeffrey's iterations. This is, I guess, okay. Counterspell in a hand, maybe the Fiery Islet into play, I think is reasonable, but I'm sure Jeffrey was wanting to hit a...
That's so rough. That's
removal
so rough.
spell,
Yeah.
right? Like, you definitely wanting to hit a one-mana removal spell.
You kind of wanted an untapped land that didn't deal you damage too, so you could afford to get an attack in, because you can't get an attack in now, because if Zeke draws Dash Ragavan, that's you lose if you attack.
Okay, Zeke hits Thoughtseize.
Are we going to heat, or are we going to steal, or are we going to counterspell?
The thing is, it's
I think that's what I mean. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
so much going on here. I think that was the thing that I liked least out of all the three options, but they're all fine
yeah.
because you still hold up heat at this point.
Yep. And Zeke has not played land drop yet for turn, which is good because you can swing in here. Jeffrey's not really sure whether Zeke would be able to kind of flash back the Pyromancer. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other shouldn't really matter. We're going to hit that, block the token. Of course, if Zeke had Bolt, then Murktide would get taken off the board. But no, we know the last card is land. Zeke is still going to represent... Ooh, interesting. So dash,
I think this might.
swing. What? Zeke just takes it. No flashback Pyromancer block. Zeke's thinking win or bust here.
Lightning Skelemental.
Jeffrey's sitting on the answer, so Zeke has to draw it off the top basically because we are now hitting both tokens.
Yeah, so Jeffrey can steal a token and then block the other one, but there's a lot of good top decks that
Swamp is not one
yeah.
of them. So, I mean, I cannot believe that Jeffrey just. It's another game where it felt like Zeke had everything going for him. Jeffrey had some rough iterations, and I think we're gonna again see Jeffrey get away with murder here.
I mean, I think we saw Murktide get away with murder, but Murktide? Murktide, is that?
I mean, Merc turd.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Consider Bolt. That'll do it. Yep, that'll do it.
All right, so we're
Jeffrey
gonna go
takes
see if our backup match is going on, and we'll get that switched over and have some more of round number 3.